Now, we've already kind of talked about this one a little bit when we talked about rich text. It was the very first point I talked about. We want to avoid rich text. We also want to very, very consider if we're putting code in our
Don't do
content
this.
at all. This is
Don't do
almost
this.
like getting design into your
I
content.
said, don't
What's
do
that,
this.
John?
Don't do this. But I'll let you keep talking.
Certainly consider it carefully. I would often say, do not do this. Having code in your content, first of all, it requires your content team to have this skill that they might not have. It's just writing code. How many people on your marketing team are actually software developers? And will your other editors have those same front end coding skills? That's an open question. I'm going to guess for most people, no or little. Most organizations implement CMS so that they don't, as John was saying, so we don't need developers when we create new content. That's the whole point. So we want this whole activity of putting content in, making it go through the workflow and publishing that to be outside of DevOps. It can trigger DevOps when I've finished publishing something, but I shouldn't need to get a developer involved. And it just kind of begs the question to me, if I have code in my content that doesn't go through DevOps, it didn't get tested like it should have been in part of my DevOps workflow. It didn't go through dev, staging, UAT, production, like all the code that our developers are working on. So why would you put code in your content?
Now, with that being said, there are cases where I've seen people do it, and it was like, wow, this makes it easier for you, 100%. But you can't reuse that content very easily. It's really hard to change it. And if you have people that have that skill, why can't they use modify it right into DevOps, right? It's just a workflow type system at that point.
So, and I'm going to talk about agility specifically here for a second, because we're building a new UI right now. It's going to go gold later this quarter. Fingers crossed on that one, but I'm dropping that right now. We're going gold with that. It will not have, as part of this gold version, we have a tool called inline code, which we have supported for years. It doesn't have that built in. We are trying to separate that, but we also listen to our customers. And so and we've already had customers saying, I need that because it's part of my workflow and it makes me really productive and I can do things really fast. And yeah, the DevOps is fine, but I can take care of it. So in that case, well, why wouldn't we keep that in our product? So we're looking at ways to make it easier to do in things like inline code or to put code in the content, even though as a sort of, as a point of reference, it's not something we want people to do from day one. But hey, if it's part of your workflow and we can help that workflow be better, why wouldn't we continue?
Travis is throwing up that question right there. So as an example of a way of having HTML and CSS within the system, it kind of goes back to the previous slide we talked about, rich text. Rich text is just HTML and CSS, right? So having rich text within your content models takes away a lot of benefits you can get from a very clean model, where it's reusability, scalability, all those type of things. But obviously there's cases and things like that. And Travis, we hear you loud and clear. I know you connected with Joel not that long ago, I think, about it. And we're going to work with you to figure out what's the best way forward and things like that, and what we're going to be doing with content versus code and how we can support customers. There are a lot of platforms that are coming out that kind of tack on top of headless CMSs that then become kind of either orchestration, or they become almost like a design creator, which allow you then to modify HTML and CSS. And those are specific for websites or specific for some type of channel, which really is the better model of how to do it, because then your model and everything, you get all the benefits of reusability, cleanliness, all those things. And then you have that second layer on top, which allows you to do the HTML, the CSS, the transformation of that content into some design or layout.